Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Oklahoma Venture Forum podcast. My name is Kyle Golding. I'm your host, and I'm joined today by Mike Orr, president of Digital Oil and Gas Solutions. Good to see you today, Mike.
Likewise, Kyle.
So Mike is going to be presenting. He's going to be our pitch presenter in November 9th, specifically for the Oklahoma Venture Forum luncheon. Pitch presenters means Mike has a new business or is looking for things that he needs to communicate to the community, ways that we can support him, maybe do business with him as well. So Mike, tell everyone what Digital Oil and Gas Solutions is, how you got started, and what it provides to the industry.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Yeah, Digital Oil and Gas Solutions was basically started from a venture between a guy that was ex-Marathon and a CFO that was ex-Arco, primarily around how do we move into an oil and gas vertical, but wanted to do things a little bit different. So having 20 plus years of big oil experience and then another 20 years telling rods and working on pulling units and drilling rigs in Northeast Oklahoma, felt like a pretty logical fit for me to jump into this entrepreneur space. So we spun up this company, Digital Oil and Gas Solutions. We primarily are a PaaS-based company, products as a service, where we offer both hardware and software from low volume producers like myself all the way up to the big guys and gals as it relates to moving IoT into all spaces of the oil and gas ecosystem. So not only do we offer sensors, edge devices, communications, we have a field data capture application that we can move that information into, and then we have a data insights platform where we collect all of this data. So literally we go from the wellhead to the boardroom.
So full service.
Full service. My guys will show up. They'll do the install. We actually do zero down in order to give those companies that are looking to move into the digital age, but don't necessarily want to make a large capital investment if they're having to choose between putting a well back online by having it pulled or, moving into this digital forefront that can be a little bit scary and cost prohibitive if you've ever done that in a prior life.
So there's a lot of entrepreneurial efforts around oil and gas. Obviously, in Oklahoma, we've been in this industry for a long time, and applying what you know from the field, from just practical execution of oil and gas to, like you said, a digital format, the digital frontier of the future, in order to make the industry much more effective and efficient, right?
That's correct. And if you look at some of the use cases, we will eventually get to solving, large, complex problems. But basically, we give you the ability to have readings on a well site that maybe that pumper gets to once a day if they're lucky and don't have anything, happen where they have to stop and fix something. We can give you 24 readings a day that at least tell you where your tank volume's at, what pressures you have on your wellheads, is your compressor running, all that type stuff that you would normally rely on people to do. We can give you a digital output of that in a pretty easy to use format.
So the more information, the more data you collect, the more potential you have for productivity, and then the more productivity, the potential you have for more revenue.
That's correct. And our term around that is called produce the limit, because again, some of these wells that we're on, you've got a well out in West Virginia that's 100 years old. It's still flowing 6 MCF a day and, free flowing. That from that perspective, if we can produce the limit of these aging assets or even these new assets, then that puts money in everybody's pocket, which then puts food on everybody's table, and it continues continues to provide a vibrant ecosystem for everybody to continue to generate money, which we all want to do.
And you guys are operating at every level, right? Upstream, midstream, downstream.
Well, we're primarily focused on upstream right now. We've got a few midstream assets that we're hanging on, and then downstream is something that we've had a lot of interest in. But those usually fall in the traditional SCADA systems where we can augment, we plug into versus rip and replace. We've got some very interesting conversations going on with a couple of downstream companies.
Speaking of conversation, what was the conversation like when you get a room full of oil and gas folks who have tons of experience in that space, but understanding that this is a technology play, that there's a ton of technology that either has to be adapted from other sources or created out of thin air in order to make this idea a reality. So what was that conversation like, and how did you guys get your technology expertise in oil and gas around digital technology and the communication piece that you incorporated into digital oil and gas solutions?
Great question, Kyle. It was an interesting play from that perspective where, I've always said technology is the easy part. So once we got out of talking about cloud-based compute and edge communications and fell over to satellite and, 420 megahertz and 485 protocols with MQTT, and we just talked about, hey, we can tell you what your tank levels are, and then we can actually tell you when you should haul those tanks based on, more of a macro-based approach to looking at simple oil and gas problems. Once we took all the techies out of it, all the tech speak out of it, then it just comes down to, hey, I might be able to do more with the available labor I've got if I just let data drive some of the conversation versus, hey, we're going to come out and install these Bluetooth sensors and we're going to hook you up to Iridium satellite that's going to go up to this cloud. It's magically going to create this wonderful dashboard that's going to solve all your problems. The other thing, too, is taking technology out of it. I haven't seen any of this tech anywhere in my journeys, across this oil and gas stratosphere that will tighten a stuffing box or grease a saddle bearing. So there's still going to need to be the hardworking people that use this stuff in order to optimize their field and make sure that they're producing the limit.
Which is obviously where your expertise comes from, because half of these terms I don't even know. I know they come along with what you guys do. One thing I've learned from OVF is the pipeline pig.
Yeah,
concept.
absolutely.
And the fact that technology that's been around for over 100 years can now be upgraded and adopted for the technology of 2022, 2023, and moving forward as well, right? If you understand
correct.
how oil and gas works.
Yeah, and we are probably the reason why we've had quite a bit of success we've had is we pretty much stay in our swim lanes, which is all around data. So, oil and gas upstream data, we understand revenue decks, we understand owners, we understand all that type stuff, which gives you both an advantage over, all right, I've got to get this data into a system that I need to take some action on, or I need to operate a little more effectively, efficiently. All of that's going to be data driven going forward. We just have taken kind of these, 20 years of high end oil and gas producing expertise and dropped it down and made it affordable for everybody to participate in.
So from original idea and those original early conversations about maybe we could do this to where you are today, what's been some of the more interesting things you've learned in that process? What's been harder than you thought it would be, and what's been easier than you thought it would be?
No, the easier than I thought it would be getting all this technology kind of put together where it makes a unified platform. Harder than I thought it would be is just getting enough volume in supply chain coming out of COVID that we could make an impact. So you would think supply chain prior to COVID was pretty much a non-event. We were piloting and having great success, and then the world kind of shut down for a variety of reasons, and we're just now coming out of that. That's been pretty hard from the perspective of just getting to scale.
So like all businesses, whether they're startups or existing, it's always about kind of what the world gives you back, right? Like you put your best effort out there and then have to wait to see what the pushback is, make your adjustment, and then move forward from there.
Yeah, and if you look at the story of Oklahoma, I was born and raised here. The majority of people that work for me were born and raised here, and we understand the importance of this environment not only from giving back. Our best customers right now are Oklahoma based. Our largest customer in this area right now is located in Oklahoma City, and we're growing right along with them. So it's been a fantastic ride in the short couple of years we've been in the market.
So where are you today? Are you're operating? You've got some customers, you've got some cash flow, but are you also fundraising or looking for other ways to increase the potential for this business to expand and scale?
Oh, absolutely. We are right in the middle right now of fundraising, and more importantly, picking the right partners in that fundraise than
Very,
just
very keenly important for sure.
just the money available. Is making sure. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had where I have to, the first half of the conversation is oil is good, not bad.
And
We're
it's
not
not
here
going
to,
anywhere
it's not
tomorrow.
going anywhere. We're not
Right.
here to, destroy the planet because, by the way, we live here too. And then secondarily to that, the next conversations have been around, all right, it's a pretty capital intensive business. What's the return on this? And, who are your partners? And so a lot of the normal due diligence, but again, a huge learning experience all the way around.
And from that aspect, because fundraising and dealing with things of that nature are sort of outside of what you've done as an employee in the oil and gas industry, what have you found that to be what are some of the more interesting things you've learned in that process?
That the numbers matter. What you put together matters. The people that you have involved significantly matter. Primarily for those, you're only as good as those representing you at the table are. So, if you are an entrepreneur and you've got a great idea, there is a fantastic ecosystem around there. And I keep using that word, but there's a fantastic family that can help just about anybody get started, as long as the idea is understood and you have the ability to kind of check your ego and those things at the door. Because there's a lot of smart people out there that have been there, done that, if you'll just listen. And I always say, God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you should use those 2 ears a lot more than the 1 mouth for sure, especially if you're an entrepreneur getting started.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to listen more than you speak. You also, it's a longer journey than most people think, right? With a lot more rejection than you expect as well, too.
Yeah.
So how did you adjust to the ideas of probably getting more no's and yeses, and how to kind of take that feedback and move forward in better ways?
One is, if you see by the gray hair up here, have a little bit of maturity on that. With that maturity comes kind of thick skin. Just because somebody doesn't think your idea is good doesn't mean the next person won't. And again, back to that, picking the right partner to help you move this forward. It's got to be win-win for all parties involved. And so, that pride, that ego checking at the door, you'll learn that real quick or you won't get very far. And then the other piece of that is, there's 5 different ways to come up to the same conclusion. Being open to those other ideas, it has significantly improved our go-to-market pitch and our go-to-market strategy.
So as the company sits today, are you wholly owned, or have you taken outside investment, or what's your sort of structure at this point?
This will be our first outside investment coming in. We've been able to bootstrap the company up till now. And then apparently it's good enough that, I can't buy 100 of widgets anymore. I need to buy thousands of widgets, and that's going to outrun our revenue pretty quick.
So you're up and running now. You want to go fast.
We want to go a little bit faster for sure.
There you go. Great attitude, great approach. You've given some great tidbits about entrepreneurialism and the mindset necessary so far, but we end every podcast with asking specifically, what about being in Oklahoma? What about being an entrepreneur in Oklahoma, starting a business in Oklahoma that you think people need to know and understand?
Oh, wow. Golly. I mean, if you look at probably the earlier story that I talked about, people in Oklahoma genuinely care. Not only do they care about your business, they actually care about you. And it's an environment where the person matters, the company matters, because there's a lot of great things starting to happen in Oklahoma, and there's been some recent announcements of companies and entrepreneurial plays kind of coming together. It's probably the most opportune time ever in the state of Oklahoma to take a great idea, surround it with some expertise of what not only you bring to the table, what others bring to the table, and then everybody wins. At the end of the day, we all want a return on investment, and that investment could be cash, it could be time, it could be investing in people. This is probably the most exciting time to be in the state of Oklahoma with a startup company that has potential, because there's a lot more opportunity and cash and expertise available than there's ever been before that I've been, living in this state.
And it seems like some of the best potential for success comes when we take some of our traditional things we've been good at for a long time, like oil and gas, and combine it with the really smart people and partners that we have in this place in the state for technology, communication, etc. It seems like a great marriage for success.
It is a great recipe for a lot of success.
So thank you very much, Mike, for having a conversation with us today. Looking forward to hearing your pitch in November for the OVF Power Lunch. So that's Mike Orr, president of Digital Oil and Gas Solutions. If you want to know more about him, there'll be some contact information in the notes. And of course, you can come to the November luncheon, hear the pitch, and talk to Mike directly. Thanks for joining us today, Mike.
Thank you as well, Kyle.